It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so speaking of entitlement programs, and Social Security, and no tax on Social Security. That went away. You saw it's, well, we don't know what it's going to end up being, but a $4,000 extra deduction if you're over 65.
Right.
Doesn't matter whether you're collecting Social Security or not at that point. So,
right, yeah.
But just read this here for everybody here. Vitamin D might do more good than just supporting bone health. It could also help the body age slower, according to a new study led by researchers at Mass General Brigham and the Medical College of Georgia.
Okay.
The study published this month in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition reveals that taking vitamin D supplements may protect against biological aging by slowing the shortening of telomeres, the tiny caps on DNA that naturally erode as people grow older. Conducted as part of a nationwide 4-year trial, the study tracked over 1,000 U.S. adults, men over 50 and women over 55, and found that daily vitamin D3 could reduce biological wear and tear equivalent to nearly 3 years of aging, according to the press release.
Now, Congress is going to take this and use this as a solution to the upcoming Social Security problem and say what we believe is we'll get with the pharmaceutical companies and the supplement companies, and we'll have vitamin D readily available, which means nobody will collect Social Security until they're 85, because 85 is the new 65 if you take the vitamin D.
Is that what they're doing in was it Denmark? Raise their age to 70?
Yeah.
They did the study, and they compared the placebo group to those taking vitamin D3, and they the ones with vitamin D3 had significant telomere shortening. Okay, I'm sorry. Participants were randomly assigned to take either a placebo or a daily dose of vitamin D3 or omega-3 fatty acids, or a placebo. They wanted to see how any of those would affect you. Compared to the placebo group, those taking vitamin D3 had significant less telomere shortening. In contrast, omega-3 supplements had no significant effect on telomere length throughout follow-up, the team reported. This was the first large-scale, long-term, randomized trial to show that vitamin D supplements protect the telomeres, according, sounds like a science fiction show. Yes.
We must protect the telomeres.
According to the co-author, this is of particular interest because the trial has also shown benefits of vitamin D in reducing inflammation and lowering risks of selected chronic diseases of aging, such as advanced cancer and autoimmune disease, they said. So there you go.
All right.
So vitamin D. Don't you get that from the sun, too?
Yeah.
That's vitamin D, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yep.
So I can justify my next sunburn. I'm kidding. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember the last
go that long.
I don't remember the last time I had a sunburn.
Yeah. I take the weekly. It's a large dose that is time release, so you take it once a week.
Yeah, I take it. I've been taking vitamin D for a while, for a long time. My doctor knows about it. I have, and we don't know why. My body, for some reason, my cells don't absorb a lot of different stuff. We know that it doesn't absorb insulin as well. That's how I have type 2 diabetes. But we found out other things, and if I take the the vitamin D, the vitamin E, and the fish oil, and make sure I eat fish, I have very slight eczema on my fingertips that used to be a lot worse before I started taking those. And my doctor knows everything that I take.
Right.
And he was we checked, monitored it, and I really didn't want to take any of the prescription stuff because it all has side effects if you've got, and mine was really slight just on the fingertips.
Right.
And I can still feel it's a tiny bit sensitive there, but it's 95% cleared up. So who knows?
Yeah.
All right, the U.S. Steel deal. I don't know.
I don't know.
Next.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
He announced the partnership. Trump announced the partnership between Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel. He said it's a partnership. He said they'll be investing money. He said U.S. Steel remains in control of decisions. And from what I got from every single financial newspaper that I met, both the steel companies are seeking more guidance from the administration about how much ownership Nippon could ultimately gain. It doesn't seem like they even know what's in the deal. He announced the partnership, but the partnership deal isn't done yet.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that they're going to hit, and this is a good thing, the Japanese steel company and the Trump administration are working out to complete a national security agreement in the coming weeks, which means if we need steel, we have it no matter what.
Right. Yeah.
For wartime.
Right. Sure.
Which is what you want. Now, this again, though, makes me wonder, because I've always had this when it comes to Trump. I have no idea. I have some idea how Trump thinks by what he says, but many times he contradicts himself. The one thing, what was the auto company that came here? Or that is
Hyundai.
Hyundai. Yeah, they're doing more here. And he was behind that deal, and we said, well, wait a minute. He was against companies. He wanted American companies producing everything here and the profits staying here, too.
Yeah, and Hyundai also doing a steel plant, and I think primarily, or at least it was at the press conference they did that day, they talked about that would be used primarily for making auto parts here in the U.S. as well.
Right.
So, again, what is the ultimate goal? When it comes to steel and national security, that should be a goal.
Well, that I understand. I mean, what is the goal, as I've said, with him extending the EU tariffs? Obviously, because the administration said for the longest time that, tariffs are not going to raise prices. Right. We're told that over and over and over again. And we've said they're not telling you the truth on that. And then they backed off on that completely.
Right. Yeah.
And have admitted, yes, it's going to cost. In fact, since it's going to cost, Trump has told people who may raise prices because of the increased costs that they know they're eat the tariffs.
Yeah.
Which means the tariffs will be passed on for the most part. And, they said, we'll do what we can. Of course, that's going to be their answer.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Target, too. We're going to do whatever we can not to pass. Well, everybody's saying that. Of course they all are.
Well, and I think, you have to temper your customer base when you're, especially a company like Walmart sets the tone for discount retail. And they had come out and talked about, all right, now there's going to be some price increases. We're going to do everything we can to mitigate that. I mean, that's basically the basis of who they've always been. One of the things that I guess the buying public, they see it, but they don't consider the entire supply chain thing. Walmart years ago, with like cereal and things like Laundry soap. Take the water out of the laundry soap so that we have more room on a truck, more units on a truck can fit. The same thing with a box of cereal. Take the air out of the box so that we can get more units on the truck. They said their goal was to take 1 million trucks off the road. Well, financially, their goal was to lower their shipping costs for all products so that you could streamline, and this is Sam Walton's thing from the beginning, a proprietary supply chain. Jeff Bezos has done that with Amazon. And when you streamline it, when you create more and more efficiencies, that allows you to be more competitive. And right now, those two, Amazon and Walmart, are neck and neck, and always competing heavily with each other. You add in a tariff situation, and you have to mitigate it, but there's only so much you can do if you're a retailer.
Well, remember, Trump was against this deal.
Mm-hmm.
Biden was against it. Trump was against it. Now Trump is for it. Why? What's the difference? That wasn't explained yesterday. But again, it increases my confusion with everything that Trump is doing. I don't know what his end goal is.
Yeah.
He's told me a number of end goals. I don't know which one he prioritizes as the most important. The one was everything must be made in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
He said that.
Yeah.
His goal is for everything to be made in the United States. Every car, every single part for every single car, every single stereo, every single cell phone, you name it, everything has to be built in America. He was against foreign investment into the United States.
Yeah.
That seems not to be the case anymore. Part of the problem with the fact that we have a cash trade deficit is that the cash from other countries, they bring it over here and invest in the United States, and he has been against that. Well, then he just approved the Hyundai deal, and he approved this deal. So, and by the way, I'm for that. I'm for foreign investment in the United States. I don't want our enemies owning sensitive property.
Right.
But I'm all for foreign investment. I'm just saying I'm confused and have always been as to where the president actually stands on all of this. What does he want? What does he want? When we've talked about these, the one trade agreement that was done with Great Britain, well, we have a trade surplus with them.
Mm-hmm.
Trump came out and said, in his own words, I want a trade surplus with every, even trade or trade surplus with every single country.
Right.
We said, well, that's impossible. That's never going to happen. You're not going to be able to get that. So what is your goal besides that? Do you wish to get close to that? Does that not bother you anymore? I don't know. I don't know. I know that there is this populist protectionist instinct that he's always had, but it never gets down to be consistent on the specifics.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
which, by the way, the market doesn't like long term.
Well, the uncertainty is the problem where you just have kind of this stagnant situation on the markets. I think right now, in fact, I got to look again. Dow futures are, popped because of the EU thing. But it's, I think the market is in a place now where you and I have been for a while, and that is, all right, we'll wait for the actions. The words don't always go that direction. The threats don't always materialize. We'll wait for the actions. And I think everything else is priced in accordingly. And so we'll see what happens on the steel deal and ultimately what they want from it. National defense, that's a given. You get wide support on that. But on trade in general, all right, what do we look the day he stood up there with Hyundai, this is great. We're going to bring all of this manufacturing back to the U.S. Well, that requires a ton of foreign investment. Are they getting internals that show they don't want foreign investment? They want American investment to bring back manufacturing? That people want American investment? They don't want the foreign investment? I don't know. Because it's back and forth.
Yeah.
It seems like there's pressure coming from all sides. But you have to have your convictions and say, this is what is going to be done, and this is how it has to work. Keep in mind, he's the president who does believe in an expanded visa program, work visa. So, and that's not something that's really talked about right now.
Well, I would ask the question, is it no longer about trade as it is where it's made, even if it's foreign investors?
Right. If they're doing it here, setting up shop here, because that's what he was saying.
Well, remember,
that day.
But they wanted to set up here. It had nothing to do with tariffs.
Right.
They wanted to set up here because they believe
the market is here.
That there's a great market here in the United States and North America to do it. This wasn't because of tariff threats.
Right.
They were on this a long time ago. Nippon wanted to do this.
Right. Yeah. No. We talked about it several years ago when they first announced that this was in the works.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins receiving the operations wildfire briefing from the U.S. Forest Service prior to the Memorial Day weekend, along with Interior Secretary Doug Burgum. The secretary signed a joint wildfire preparedness memorandum after the briefing.
This memorandum basically says that we're asking all of the agencies who work with us to use all their authorities that they have in their hands to not just fight fires, to take action on fires.
The memorandum signing during National Wildfire Awareness Month in May underscored both current round-the-clock wildfire containment efforts in states like Arizona and Minnesota and the public's awareness of their role in wildfire prevention. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
And it's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And the European Union tariffs of 50% have been delayed, for another month? Was it sometime in July?
Right, yeah. I thought I saw it would be 40 days or something like that, but yeah. So it's, again, the play seems to be, all right, get everything to the table. We're going to eventually, I think we're going to look at a 10% across the board tariff. I think that's where they'll settle on everything. And again, what do we call it? The Laffer curve of tariff numbers. How much can you get away with without affecting the economy too much?
Well, let me ask, why 10%?
I don't know. I just think that's where the math must have come back.
Well, but what does it accomplish for what his stated goals are?
Just enough to get you a victory parade. I don't think it accomplishes anything that he talked about before.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like taking NAFTA to USMCA. You don't really change much, but you take your victory lap.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
Turn On Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, we had heard he was sick, but sad to hear about the death of Phil Robertson.
Yeah, the family had been very public with the information on his dementia on their podcast and media interviews in recent months. They also recently announced that their mom is also dealing with some level of dementia, but in fact, this was just last week that they talked about that, I think, on their podcast. And but that Phil was not good. That's basically the sentiment that they shared last week, and then learning over the weekend that he passed away. They're actually, A&E is actually bringing back Duck Dynasty. I didn't even know A&E was still around, but they're going back and reviving that series. They've had a pretty strong presence online. I haven't seen the brand out there in terms of everything that they put out while they were on the air. You saw it everywhere. You saw it in stores everywhere, especially like Walmart. Just all of their merch was everywhere. Their primary merchandise that they sell, their business is still running like it always has. The duck calls and the merch surrounding that. But a lot of the merch became more about the personalities, the family members and surrounding the TV show. And they're bringing the TV show back. I don't know if that's going to be a limited run or not. We'll see how it goes, I guess. But Phil Robertson was a part of their podcast up until this goes back. I want to say last year sometime. That he was no longer able to appear on the podcast. He was just running into issues. But basically, the entire family made at some point an appearance on the podcast. And they just talked about a number of things, issues going on. But very sad to hear about that over the weekend, as many of us, you and I have talked about it. Many of us have family members who have dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that decline with them. My wife and I both dealing with that over the weekend with a couple of different family members. But they're getting the care they need, the best care that they can get, and that's the best you can ask for. But it was a fairly fast decline, according to the family, with Phil Robertson.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm flying back this Friday to see Dad, so I'll experience that again, and I do experience it when I call every day, and most days. Well, recently he's been great one day, then maybe 2 or 3 days I can't. They just say it's not worth talking to him, and I tried the other day, and he just was on a different topic, and really didn't even recognize I was on the phone. And then the day before we talked, and he understood 99.9% of what I was talking about and articulated it back to me. And so, and that's why when we talk about how ridiculous what it is with the, the entire Biden thing and Jake Tapper, well, I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
Then you shouldn't be in the business because you don't have the observational skills of 99.999% of Americans that knew something was wrong with Biden. There are just things that when you see it. And when you see it, it's you come to understand it, and you come to understand the things they may say to you while in their dementia aren't them talking, but that's the toughest part to me, is seeing somebody like my father, who's his engineering mind, besides his great character traits, his engineering mind defined him.
Yeah.
So he was as a human being.
Sure.
He was an engineer. Curiosity about everything.
Right.
Analyzing everything.
Yeah.
And to see him at times trying, but he can't connect the dots, is frustrating to watch. Those are the kind of things you look at and say, that's just unfair. That's just not, And those are things where you say, God, I can't handle it.
Well,
Handle it for me.
It's especially tough when you leave a room and come back, and you come back in just a few minutes into that room, and as you approach them, it's very clear they don't recognize you in that moment.
Yes.
That's been the toughest part.
Yeah, that
happened over the weekend with us.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And it's, it's part of it. And it's just a horrible disease, and our prayers are with the Robertson family, and caring for their mom and their loss of Phil, and with all the families having to deal with dementia, and all the professional caretakers that are out there that do that as well. It's a especially frustrating, confounding disease that is just makes life very sad.
But what a fascinating life he led, though.
Mm-hmm.
He was a star athlete in high school, got a scholarship to play football at Louisiana Tech, started for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
There were people that looked at him and said, okay, you've got potential to play in the pros. He had no interest.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I want I play football to get the scholarship to go to school.
Right.
But he had no interest in going pro. There's a story out there that Paul Harvey tried to get him, to go to the back then it was the Washington Redskins, and he just said, no, I have no interest. Terry Bradshaw played behind Phil at Louisiana Tech.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I saw those two, this maybe 5-6 years ago. They were talking about it. They were together interviewing each other. I can't remember where it was, what interview it was. And it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the line from Phil saying, no, Terry Bradshaw wanted to play football. And Terry said, I did. You didn't. And there was a great line from Phil Robertson who said, you went for the Bucks, I went for the Ducks. But it's like he really didn't want to play football. He wanted to hunt.
Yeah.
It's what he wanted to do.
Right.
It's like, he just basically rejected football. Now, this just gets me the scholarship, get me the education. I want to move on to something else. I'd rather hunt than do this. You just love individuals like that don't follow what you would expect, all the peer pressure and everything else in football to lead them to. I remember a guy who played tight end in the NFL. His name was Jan White. He played for the Bills. Only played for like 1 year and then went into the ministry.
Yeah.
Said, nah, I'm going to the ministry.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. I remember that hit me as a young person. I remember thinking, I go, wow, that's fascinating.
Right.
It's football, but there's so many other things to be done in life, and that's a great attitude to have, because when it comes down to it, I know it doesn't seem like it when you're in the middle of your favorite team doing something, but it is a game.
Yeah.
It doesn't define your life.
Right.
And with him, it certainly did. It was almost like, football, it's over there. I liked it, but that was over there. I got a bunch of other interest over here, of what to do. So,
yeah,
79 years old, and it's so sad because it happens so quickly. And then I guess was it Charlie Rangel died? You saw that, right? Yeah, he's
right.
Democrat for years, got in that scandal later on in his career, but had a long career for the Democrats. But sad to see.
Yeah,
sad to see. But what else is going on? Let's look at this here, because this is a story I want to make sure we get to. I love this because we've talked about education and where it's going. Chicago public school officials are debating whether their grading policy is too lenient, with one principal arguing that leniency in grading will not translate into success in the real world for students. Quote, when students graduate and are working in jobs, what they experience around grace and flexibility at school is not going to match. That's a quote. Ellen Kennedy said in a report in the Chicago Sun-Times The bubble is not going to surround you wherever you go.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy is principal at the Richards Career Academy High School. The Richards Career Academy High School is predominantly enrolled by Latino and black students. The school piloted a new grading policy before COVID that allowed them to redo assignments repeatedly and then submit assignments late. This policy was intended to address rising absenteeism in the district. Even if they don't complete the assignment, the lowest score they could get was a 50 rather than a 0, a concept known as no-zero grading. The trend of no-zero grading started across the district and the United States as a part of a push to give students more chances to show what they learned. Proponents of the policy argued that the traditional grading policy makes it difficult for students to recover, put in an effort, and attend class. Well, isn't that why I went to summer school every year from ninth grade to between 11th and 12th grade?
Yeah, right.
Isn't that why I went to summer school each and every year?
Mm-hmm.
That was my second chance. So,
Well,
they said Jessica Bunzoy, a transformation coach at the University of Chicago Network for College Success, who has done work with that high school, said issuing Fs are not motivators for young people.
yeah, but they are for the parents. It's you have to fail. You have to learn to fail when you're young. Failure is required, otherwise you don't learn. The greatest lessons come from failure.
I had my first calculus teacher. I was in high school, but I was taking a college course to get into the engineering course I wanted to get into, the engineering curriculum. So I actually was going to high school. Then at night, I went to take I needed one calculus class. And this guy came in, he had paint on his shirt. He was painting his house that day. But he came in, and he was a great calculus teacher. And when you were taking quizzes and tests, you could go up and ask him questions. I don't know how to get here, and he would get you clues of how to do it. Then you take further tests where he would see whether you retain the knowledge that he helped you get through. But at the end, I remember I got a B for the course. And I thought to myself, that's what is in my brain. I basically, if you take the curriculum, I have a B in that. That's what I retained. I remember thinking that to myself. Now, the final exam, you couldn't get any help or get any clues.
Right.
But for the regular course, you could, and it actually worked. Now you had to go up, and if you didn't ask for the hints and the clues, well, then you'd fail the test. But if you went up and said, I'm not sure how to get here, he'd ask you some questions. What about this? What about that? Well, what do you think here? Well, I think that. All right, go with that. Try that or whatever. And that's how he did it. And he was one of the rare teachers that I think could pull that off.
Yeah, it's a very unique type of approach. You show them how to get there. You don't do it for them. You don't give them the answer.
Right.
Because in any math class at all, it was about show your work, right?
Right.
They want to know that you learned how to do that.
Right.
And so that kind of help makes sense.
And he said to me one time, he said, it does no good to have you frustrated in math class.
Right.
And not know how to get there.
Right.
And then for a couple of days waiting for the test score to come in. And then seeing you flunked and not knowing what you did wrong.
Right, exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow. I just saw the headline in the New York Post.
Yeah?
Wow.
What?
Her reputation ruined after 45 years.
Oh, yeah.
Mary Lou Retton got a DUI earlier this month.
Yeah, but in the roadside sobriety test, she nailed the dismount. Perfect dismount. You know? Once you learn it, you never forget it. Yeah. It just makes you wonder. It's like, come on. With Uber, you got to have friends, family. No need to drink and drive. Come
Uber.
on. Uber.
Uber. It's so simple.
It's
not to
simple.
Get it. Yeah.
You know?
Taxis used to be hard to get compared to Uber or Lyft.
Oh, yeah.
So easy to get. Yeah.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.